I hope this lag isn't going to affect my recording, but welcome back to another WuWa lag issue and struggle. On a serious note though, did you know that Unreal Engine 4 that Kuro uses for Wuthering Waves is modded like hell? And it reached to the point that even the creators of Unreal Engine, which is Epic Games, they themselves have said that the extended modding of the engine is so massive that they do not think they can cover support for them. Let's be real though, Wuthering Waves is one of the best looking games in the graphical side of things. The story is great too, but that can be debatable from one person to another. But the fact that even a WuWa hater or a Genshin shill will say that Wuthering Waves looks insanely good if he didn't know this was WuWa. It reached to the point that the game took a turn to not only be an animated gacha, but it took a nice step into the anime books. By the way, someone who made a nice, amazing, and dove in extremely was Ryuuku Sensei. So I will have his video down in the description, but nonetheless, this is my take now. We all have seen the WuWa problems with the lag stutters, the FPS drops, and the heating for phones. All of that can be concluded to the use of outdated devices. But is it? One of the possible reasons for all of this engine customization was to make the game run across as much hardware as possible, including older devices. Also, with recent updates, we have seen extreme graphical changes, like the electric grass near the Thundering Memphis, or even after Machisa in Ashinihara. Also, the amount of things that the game keep on adding, from minute details from faces, the city, and the world. At that point, the players were saying the game was unplayable, with even some budget phones being able to open the game, but after 10 to 15 minutes, the game would just pause and then crash. That cannot be a sustainable way to keep that same player on playing the game again. So a lot of players, especially on budget phones, started to quit. Don't get me wrong though, I am not a game dev and I don't think I have the mental capacity to even become one. I may dabble a bit in Blender, but I can't even start to comprehend what it would take for a game studio to create graphics and motion like they do in Kuro. But I had this question, which made me make this video. Why did Kuro decide to use Unreal Engine 4 instead of Unreal Engine 5 and mod the engine that heavily to the point that even the creators said peace out? Let's go back in time and trace our tracks. Kuro released Wuthering Waves back in May 2024. The first public reveal for the game was back in 2022. So I would believe they started working on the foundations of the game before May 2022, so let's just say 2021. Now UE5 was released in 2022, so the studio at the time would have had two choices. Either finish their foundations in UE4 and mod it heavily to achieve the vision that they wanted the game to be, and just ditch the idea and wait for the release of Unreal Engine 5, which was first announced at the mid of 2020. And we all can see that Kuro chose the first option and the project got way too dependent on their specialized engine than just having a regular one. Thank you, commenter, and thank you all for watching this video so far. If you have been enjoying up to this point, feel free to give the video a like and a sub, which would be much appreciated and help me reach the goal of 500 subs to make my first giveaway. Now, back to that comment. The thing about these engines is that the switch from one version to another is something you have to do gradually. It is not something you can just port from one family of the engine to the other. Think of it as a newborn. You can't just tell him to run. He or she has to go through the steps to gain the ability to do so. Reaching that stage would take time and patience from both the dev team and the community. But I do believe that all of the optimizations that are happening to the game currently are due to the upgrades of the engine versions. As we saw in the 3.6 livestream, the game made some nice promises, which I believe to be even better in PC with the aim of FrameGen and DLSS. But for phones, they would have to make some serious work to get that optimized. But we cannot know for sure until the patch is released. But why wouldn't Kuro use Unity like how Genshin does? Wait, do they not have experience with Unity?
Oh my goodness!
They actually do. Don't forget that Wuthering Waves is not the only game in Kuro's arsenal. They also have Punishing Grey Raven, which is made entirely using Unity. So why didn't they just use Unity after that? To be honest, I really don't know. But after some reading and research for both engines, my findings concluded that maybe Unity does not have all the things that they need to give the complete version of WuWa. So they just decided to mod Unreal Engines to its peak and create their own engine. Because let's be real, if you downloaded Minecraft and started to add a shit ton of mods. Then at some point, it doesn't become your regular old Minecraft, it becomes a Frankenstein of your own creation. Now let's talk about the mobile situation with the exit crashing and the stutter in places like Rohairoi. The main issue would be the fact that the game got way too powerful for the mobile hardware. The studio uses a bunch of reflections, lightings, the grass that I just talked about near the Thundering Memphis, and all the things that amazes us that the game decided to add. Now studios usually have a smart way to make their games easier to load and play on. They don't render the things that you don't see. For example, in this video, it shows how that would be the case. But in Wuthering Waves, you would think that entering a nightmare nest would channel you into its own world or domain, so it would be easier to deal with the graphical demands. But no, that doesn't happen. Imagine it as layers, and every layer is loaded at the exact same time, but you can only see the top layer, which would be the nightmare nest in this case. If the game is keeping more of the surrounding world active than we'd expect normally, that could help explain some of the extra load we're seeing. And WuWa doesn't seem to give mobile hardware much of a break. Even during moments when you're not actively fighting, the game can still be processing and rendering a lot of information. Now thankfully, the studio is working hard on the optimization with the release of 3.6 very soon. I know they can fix it, and even make all the fixes permanent and ongoing from this point. And I know that the studio is just getting started. Love you all. Mwah.